Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in April of 2020, when we decided to create this ongoing series on COVID-19's impact, first on nonprofits and then on small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area, we, like you, had no idea how long the pandemic would go on and what the health and economic impact would be in our community. With vaccinations increasing, COVID-19 cases and deaths decreasing, we're now moving into the summer of 2021 with the reopening of the economy and all of the uncertainty of our ever-changing indoor and outdoor, vaccinated and unvaccinated protocols, and the politics that will drive how we all come back together as a unified or fractured community. We will continue to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits and small businesses that make up the fabric of our community, along with the founders and staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability until we can all get to the other side of the pandemic. Along the way, we will also share with you all the amazing solutions that our nonprofits, small businesses, foundations, and government leaders are working on to help us all get to the other side of the pandemic and come together to rebuild our communities with more economic, social, and environmental equality.
We made the commitment that even with an expected deficit, we want to give this gift to the city. It's so necessary for the community to come back together. I feel like there's been so much division among community that we want to rebuild. We want to lift everyone's spirits, and music really has the power to do that. And as somebody who grew up in California, you love the diversity of the state. But there aren't a lot of experiences where everybody is side by side having the same experience, and it really draws out all corners of the community.
This is the Director of Development of Stern Grove Festival, Ilana Vasconcelos. With the state of California officially reopening on June 15th and performing arts organizations working their way through all of the ever-changing health and safety protocols, we wanted to feature one of the oldest outdoor music festivals in the city of San Francisco to hear how they're working together with artists, staff, and the local government to bring the community back together through music. I'm joined remotely by the Director of Development of Stern Grove Festival, Ilana Vasconcelos. Thanks for being here, Ilana.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to join you.
So I wanted to have Stern Grove on the show because I went to the festival with my grandfather, who used to live literally 10 blocks away from Stern Grove back in the 60s. So you're coming up on your 84th season.
That's right.
Tell us about Stern Grove Festival and a little bit of history, and then what are some of your programs? Because it's a festival, but you also do education as well.
Yes, that's right. So as the 84th season might imply, we are going on our 84th year of concerts and programs provided for the community at Stern Grove Festival. The festival has a wonderful history. Our core was from Rosalie Meyer Stern, who was the wife of Sigmund Stern, who was the nephew of Levi Strauss, actually purchased the land where the festival takes place in San Francisco in the Sunset neighborhood back in 1931 with the goal of providing a space for music and concerts and performances to take place for free for the community. And this initial thought of hers was shortly after the Depression as a way to hire and support the symphony musicians. And the land was given to the city with the caveat that these concerts would need to be held here and open and free for the public. And here we are 84 years later, coming out of another kind of rough patch. And we at the festival are just thrilled that we've been approved to hold the live season again this year. In 2019, we saw over 70,000 guests over our course of 10 free concerts. And in 2020, a month before we were ready to announce our amazing lineup, you can imagine that we were told, like everything else, that we were not going to be able to do that. And so that was the first time in 83 years to not have held a season. And like the rest of the community, we are just so eager to reconnect and bring this gift back to the city starting June 20th. and it'll be 10 consecutive concerts with a little break on August 22nd. And we present all different genres, hoping to appeal to the broadest audience.
So back to 2020 for a second, it wasn't like you just went completely away, which most performing arts organizations did. And then like most performing arts organizations, you, and everyone's favorite word, pivoted to doing online. And that also includes your education. So you have an amazing archive. So could you talk a little bit about how you went online with last year, but then also how education is accessible through online as well?
Sure. So education programs have been a big part of our mission in providing music education programs for youth and families. And in addition to the concerts, those are free programs as well during a time when students don't always have access to a lot of interesting educational and fun materials because not everybody can go to camps. And so these are activities that have been held in the park. In the past, groups come out and participate with some of our wonderful educators. It might be dance or learning music, writing raps or working with poetry into lyrics. And we've been doing education programs for many years. And last year, to pivot, I'll steal your word. We actually had our educators record 1 hour long programs. We had 6 different artists record an hour long program. So anybody could do it online directly from our website and at any moment in time. So that was how we changed and shifted our education programs. And we had the benefit of having most of our concerts over the past archived, and we had footage available. So we weren't ever really sure what that footage might be used for. And then 2020 let us know exactly what it was going to be used for. And we compiled episodes called Best of the Fest, which were clips of some of the different performances over the past. They didn't go back 80 years, and that would have been pretty incredible, but it was about, I think, the furthest back were in the 90s. But we compiled an episode of different performers and performances from our stage, and we were able to broadcast them with the help of KPIX each week, every Sunday afternoon, kind of around the same time we would have been holding a live concert. And this was a brand new thing for us. So our team just quickly pulled it together and did an excellent job of executing something really high quality. And we had over 500,000 viewers, which totally outdid any expectation that we had for our viewership. So that was really exciting. And of course, we learned lessons that we now take forward into this next year. We're going to be live streaming our live performances. Even though we can bring a physical audience back out, we still want to spread the music as widely as possible.
So now you're in the process of reopening. And as we were just talking about before we came on, it's changing each day, each week. And so what has the team been doing to prepare for reopening on June 20th? And what should audience members do to participate in these wonderful free concerts?
Sure. So as you can imagine, we have been building kind of 3 different scenarios from earlier this year and even at the end of last year to be prepared for whatever the eventuality might be. And we are still learning what that is exactly going to look like. But fortunately, we've been approved by the city with the support of the mayor's office and the city health department to open to a live audience. We will have a limited audience and we will have to manage capacity for the first time ever. So we're requiring reservations to the concerts, which is different from people who in the past may have just shown up after deciding that morning that they might like to go see a beautiful concert outside in Stern Grove. So there'll be a reservation process and we will be kind of releasing the reservation process about 12 days in advance of each concert so that it'll be a slower rollout because capacity is likely to change over the course of the season. We are going to open the season pretty conservatively with about 15% capacity for us. And by the end, we hope that we'll be back to a full capacity at the end of August. And we hope that everybody's just going to be respectful of one another and follow the current guidelines wherever they are at that moment that the concert takes place.
And so audience members and people who want to participate in the free shows should go to your website.
Yes. And we'll have everything updated there for what the current rules are. Or if there aren't any more, then we'll let people know that as well. And I think probably the newest thing that will be different is requiring reservations. And that is, again, exactly just because we have a capacity that we haven't had to manage in the past. We're also going to have a fenced perimeter, again, to speak to managing capacity, which we haven't done in the past. So that'll be a bit new. And the website will have directions of where to enter the park.
And is there a theme for this year's season?
Oh, I think everybody's probably got their own theme in mind, what it means to come back out and hear live music and be with the community. It's been a real rough year for everybody, lots of people for different reasons, but we feel like we're in such an honored position to be able to open the gates or doors, if you will, to the community in a way that I don't think anybody else can, right? We're outdoors, which gives us a huge advantage as far as getting permission to open in the first place, but also that we're free. We're not relying on the ticket sales. So the fact that we might not know exactly what capacity will be allowed hasn't been a hindrance for us. We recognize that the fundraising piece is going to be a little bit askew this year since we didn't know until last month that we would be approved to go forward. We haven't been able to do as robust of a job of fundraising as we would have otherwise. But we made the commitment that even with an expected deficit, we want to give this gift to the city. It's so necessary for the community to come back together. I feel like there's been so much, division among community that we want to rebuild. We want to, lift everyone's spirits, and music really has the power to do that. And as somebody who grew up in California, you love the diversity of the state, but there aren't a lot of experiences where everybody is side by side having the same experience, and it really draws out all corners of the community. And so I feel it is definitely a gift for me to be able to work for such an organization, but also something that we're excited to share with so many people that will join us this year.
So following up on that, over the 80 plus years, needless to say, you haven't been there that entire time. What do you feel has been some of the largest impacts of the Stern Grove Festival on San Francisco and community, but also really on youth through your education and families?
Every year we get feedback from whether it's audience members or the performers, that it might be the largest stage they've been on up to that point, or people who participate in our education programs, and hearing those stories. I think it was in 2019 where a mother shared that her daughter, who was one of 5 or 6 children, was quiet and timid and always was in the background among their family because she was of the younger end of the siblings. And having her participate in a kind of songwriting program and music education program that ran for 5 consecutive days at a community center showed her voice. And her mother said that she came out of the experience different and more confident and proud, and that she had something to contribute, even just in her home environment. And it's just so wonderful to think that participating in a program like that could have such a lasting impact for youth. And one of my favorite stories was when we had Anushka Shankar perform on our stage, I think in 2018. One of the tweets we saw was a little girl telling her mom, "There's somebody up on the stage that looks like me. I haven't seen that before." And that's the value that we bring to the community, just the diverse performances that we hope speak to people. If it's not this one, then it'll be next week or the week before. And if it's not the headliner, maybe it's the opener. The structure of our concerts is that we have usually an opener who we aim for several local openers or bands or groups or artists to be openers for a headlining performer who would be like a national touring performer, so that we have the opportunity to support the community and artists that might be up and coming in our area and aligning them next to a huge name that people would be excited to come out and see. So I think that level of exposure is really important to support the community that way as well. So the opening act is Ledisi, and she was an opener for somebody else years and years ago. And I found that out from one of our donors who has been tracking her career and was excited to see that she's the headliner this year for our opening concert. And I know the mayor's really excited to see her too.
Wonderful. So how can folks who are listening to the show participate in Stern Grove Music Festival? There's free tickets. You're doing it at a deficit, so I'm sure donations are accepted and people can make that happen. That would be great. Mm-hmm. There's also volunteer, and you're also providing jobs. So tell us how folks can get engaged.
Sure. Yep. We're just in the process of hiring all of our seasonal positions. We're only a staff of 7 year round, but during the season, we hire another 80, 85, up to 100 staff members, often people interested in the industry, looking to kind of learn more about it and experience all of the activity that comes along with putting on big concerts. So that's one way that we work with a lot of the local universities that have programs in this area. And then also we work with volunteers, a little bit scaled down this year because we expect a lower capacity. But of course, we hope that everybody's hearts will be so full by the music they experience out of the Grove this year that everybody's going to be generous. And we have our volunteers help us collect donations, and we're working to have lots of touchless options this year as well. Text to give, which is something that we discovered last year in a way to kind of communicate while we had a broadcast, but also try and work on donations. And our donors have been supportive. And this year, people that donate $1,500 or more can also request a private picnic table to one of the concerts. So that's another way that we try and share some benefits back with our high-level donors that have helped us get through a really interesting year last year and also are helping us close the gap this year as well.
And so what do you feel are some of the good things that could come out of the pandemic and our economic downdraft, if you will, to help our performing arts, music, youth, families, and our community at large?
So I know that we learned a lot last year being completely virtual. We had to up our game as far as what we knew how to do. We learned that some of our staff had special secret skills that we can now rely on. So learning how to build a virtual program. It wasn't perfect, but it was substantial enough to get us through, and seeing what the response was to virtual programming. I do think as the world opens up, people are going to be excited to be in person, but I don't expect somebody in Nashville to be able to come to one of our concerts on a whim. So that we're having a live stream available, I think that's a lesson we learned. It's time for us to kind of move to a virtual age where our reach is broader and allows us to be even more inclusive. You know, many platforms require fees or a payment to participate, but because our mission is to provide free music to all, we've been able to work with our live stream partners, Stage It, to get rid of the fees so that it's still completely free for people to participate and see the programs. So those are some of the things we're taking forward. And as I mentioned, the text to give is another fundraising method that we're using, because if you're watching a broadcast, we can't engage with people the same way that we would if we were on site to collect donations. So that's a way we were trying to make it as easy as possible for donors. And people are comfortable with their phones. So we're trying to take advantage of that as well. So I think that learning that we can be flexible has been a great lesson to all of us. And it's really brought the staff together. It's a very hardworking and creative staff to try and troubleshoot just this whole year. And I'm sure that's going to continue throughout the season, knowing it's going to be a really challenging season and with a lot of things that are different for us this year.
There's some great insights, I think, and what's really happened over this last year for performing arts, it's really opened that proverbial fourth wall, right?
For sure.
And the fact, just your numbers, right? You had, double, triple the amount of people who enjoyed 2020 virtually versus 2019 in person?
I think we had something like 8 times as many. So yeah, it was a big jump for us and something we didn't expect. And we don't know what this year will have in store, but what we know is we're fulfilling our mission by having our live concerts. And then the rest is icing on the cake to spread our wings a little further.
And then education this summer will be virtual or in person?
Because the restrictions with kids have still been a bit tight, we shifted to work on just a purely virtual program. And our education programs are supported by Dodge & Cox, which will be great. They've been really supportive, even as we're transitioning different years with different limitations. They've helped us with our education programs. And it will be all virtual. Again, we're working with educators that we've worked with in person for many years, and they know us and kind of know what we hope to convey through our educational music programs.
I was fascinated to learn you could learn how to Vogue as well, which ties right into the last season of Pose. So.
Yes. We were excited. We had Joe Cleese work with us, I think, the past 2 years. And one of my favorites is Bhangra, learning how to dance like your favorite Bollywood stars. That's always been fun. Dual Rhythms is a group that we've worked with on site a lot, and it's a kid's favorite, I think. They like to get out there and move with some moves that might feel a little funny, but are actually really, really fun.
That's great. All right. So final word, the people need to go to your website, keep checking in on what's the latest on all of the precautions to get in, and reservations are going to change each week. Check 12 days ahead of time of what you think is going to be your favorite show, and you'll be on top of it.
That sounds good. Yes.
So thank you, Ilana, for sharing the work of Stern Grove Music Festival. We will make sure that listeners have your contact information, website, and social media so they can follow Stern Grove Music Festival productions. Get engaged, get those opportunities to volunteer, make donations, and support the mission through tickets, volunteering, and hopefully sponsoring. Please stay safe out there and enjoy the wonderful season. I'm so glad that you guys are doing this.
Thank you. Lovely speaking with you.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voice of the Director of Development of Stern Grove Festival, Ilana Vasconcelos. To find out more about Stern Grove Festival, this season's musical lineup, making reservations, and health and safety protocols. And of course, to donate, please go to sterngrove.org. For more insights into how our performing arts organizations have been impacted by the pandemic over this past year plus, please go to georgecoster.com and click on the COVID-19 and San Francisco Nonprofit Series button to listen to interviews with all of these wonderfully important organizations: the San Francisco Mime Troupe, Word for Word, Z-Space, City Arts and Lectures, San Francisco Performances, Access Dance Company, Presidio Dance Theater, the San Francisco Girls Chorus, Peninsula Ballet Theater, Joe Goody Performance Group, Music at Cole Mansion, the Dancers Group, the Community Music Center, Intermusic SF, Left Coast Theater, Opera Parallel, and Theater Bay Area. Please tune in to next week's show on June 17th at 8:30 a.m. on KSFP 102.5 FM, where our theme is children and families, and we hear from two legacy social service organizations, Compass Family Services and Raphael House, about their work with our families to deal with the pandemic's ongoing impact on their housing, jobs, and health. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in the series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and Casey Nance at Citron Studios, along with the wonderful crew at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.